Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Tom Holland's Uncharted 2022. Let's talk about it. All right, so it's a major new movie. By the way, spoilers for all of the film Uncharted 2022. All right, so I just saw Uncharted 2022 starring Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Who else is it starring? I didn't know anybody else's name in the entire film. Sorry. Okay. All right. I see a lot of movies. I just haven't seen any of them with those other people to the point where I would learn their names yet. All right. So, and both of them, actually, everybody in the movie has $1 billion. Everybody I named has $1 billion film. All right. So I don't think there's anybody else in there who was the star of $1 billion film that I don't know their name. But yeah. All right, so let's squeeze Uncharted 2022 for the Dungeons & Dragons juice. Here we go. First of all, it's very important, and I think we need to acknowledge that all big blockbusters are really important for Dungeons & Dragons right now, because we need to know if there's going to be a movie industry for Dungeons & Dragons 2023 to drop in, right? To actually succeed in. So here's a question, right? Since March 2020, we didn't even know when the Dungeons & Dragons film came out that it would be possible to have an actual movie success. What is a movie success? It's $1 billion. Right? Like, if your movie has $1 billion sales, it's a successful film, right? There's no argument, right? And so we need Dungeons & Dragons absolutely to top $1 billion. If it does a dollar less than that, it is a failure, in my humble opinion. Okay, so it definitely needs to do $1 billion. And honestly, in the new March 2020 world, we didn't even know if that was going to be possible. We do know the answer now. The new Spider-Man No Way Home with Tom Holland made $1.8 billion. Right. So not only do we know it can make $1 billion, we know in 2023 $2 billion should be possible. Right. So the reality is, I think the target for Dungeons & Dragons 2023 Paramount film is $2 billion plus. Okay, and the reality is, if it makes $1 billion and stops there, fine, it's a success. It's a success, right? If it makes $2 billion, then the effort was worthy of the name Dungeons and Dragons. If it makes $3 billion, we got a hot performer on our hands, and that's so. Tom Holland has proven that the box office is not dead, and that a movie can absolutely scrape the ceiling of $2 billion, right? Like, not make it, but, $2 billion's within range, right? And that's exciting. That's massively exciting. That's very, very exciting, right? That means Dungeons & Dragons can make $2 billion. All right, next, let's talk about Uncharted 2022 from a Dungeons & Dragons perspective. And what does Uncharted 2022 have to say specifically about the modern fighter, okay? So, Tom Holland plays Nathan Drake, okay? He is a modern fighter. And specifically, if he's going to be classed within Dungeons & Dragons, he has no magic, right? He has no animal companion. We know what he is. He's a fighter, okay? And what's interesting is, actually, Tom Holland's Uncharted film had the same problem that Dungeons & Dragons has right now. I'm going to say this here. It's the first time I'm saying this. Fighters are done in Dungeons & Dragons. They're the new Shaggy. They're the Shaggy of the Scooby Gang. They're the Xander of the. They are the Xander of the. They're the Shaggy of the Scooby Gang, and specifically they are the Xander of the Buffy Gang, right? So the reality is, Strixhaven really changed the ball, right? One, if you take a fighter class now, you're not, like, if you want a strong build in Dungeons & Dragons, you only go with a Strixhaven caster, right? Because a Strixhaven caster is a Strixhaven caster for Wizard, Cleric, Bard, Sorcerer, Warlock. I think that covers it, right? They are given Initiate powers, Apprentice powers, Pledge Mage powers through Strixhaven, and essentially what Strixhaven is it is a background that has a 250-page book, okay? And so if you choose a fighter you are way behind. It's not, and this is why the vast majority of reviewers were terrified, right? They did, of Strixhaven, and would not allow, and a lot of them were like, you can't, you have to separate this from Dungeons and Dragons, right? And the reality is, and this is a major problem in Dungeons and Dragons now, because fighters are essentially useless, right? You'd have to be a fool to not play a caster after Strixhaven got printed, right? If you care about build, if you care about a strong build, right? And the reason why is you could make a much stronger build. Only schmucks play non-Strixhaven characters at this point. For if you go for build, if you're going for a narrative, you got a good excuse to make a non-Strixhaven build. Or if you're like, hey, I don't care about having a suboptimal build. But if you are playing for build, you play Strixhaven only, right? And you could play any of those. You could play a cleric, like a wizard. You could play a warlock. You could play a bard. Any of those major caster classes, right? But the reality is, any non-Strixhaven is completely suboptimal. A lot of people don't know this, because a lot of people didn't read Strixhaven, right? A lot of people read Strixhaven and got real frightened of it, right? And didn't really process it, right? So what I'm saying is new. This is 100% echoed in Tom Holland's Uncharted. He's a fighter, and he sucks, right? And guess what? Him and Mark Wahlberg are both fighter class and end with literally the treasure that can be carried in Nathan Drake's pockets. They get nothing, right? They lose all the gold, they lose the ships, they lose the keys, they lose everything, and walk away with no additional power and nothing but bruises and cuts for their troubles, and literally the treasure that can be carried in Tom Holland's pants pockets. Literally. It's just pure scrub. And so Uncharted 2022 perfectly echoes Dungeons & Dragons' current death of the fighter. The fighter is for suboptimal build players only, right? If you play anything but a Strixhaven caster now, you can just count out your build, because it's going to stink compared to any Strixhaven build. So Uncharted, I was really nice to see that echo. And it's also, it kind of fits the real world now, right? Like, hey, like even the fighter today, right? You're like, oh, so you're gonna put on your boots and take your, mechanical projectile weapon onto that field? I guess that'd be useful. I could just use this UAV and do everything you do in less time with more force. Like, so the fighter is finished, right? Finished on the IRL field, finished on Uncharted 2022, and definitely finished in Dungeons and Dragons. All that's my opinion. What do you think? Let me hear in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.